sports. Remember that the show is very interactive and you can communicate with us on our WhatsApp platform +233 244 340 437. Also, get on our Facebook wall. It's Joy Sports on Facebook and Joy997 on Facebook as well. We're streaming live and you can be part of the discussions. You can place in your questions for the president of the Sports Writers Association of Ghana, a legendary sports journalist and globally celebrated commentator. Kwabena Yeboah is my guest here on the show this afternoon. And we'd like to say a very big thank you to everybody who showed up at +233 last night for the Open Mic 2. It was a wonderful evening, and of course, we had a great time. We're going to do this again. Of course, as we go into the coming week, there's more that your superstation Joy 99.7 FM is bringing to you. We're the official home of Valentine this year, 2019. And also, the next set of global stars, I'm talking about our children who are sports inclined, will get the opportunity to show their talents in the upcoming Kids Olympics powered by Joy Sports and supported by your superstation Joy 99.7 FM.
Are you ready for the Joy FM Kids Olympic? Is your child a budding sports talent? Is he or she a healthy competitor? And most importantly, between the ages of 5 and 12 years, then your child could be the next global sporting icon. That journey to greatness begins at the maiden edition of the Joy FM Kids Olympics. 3 Saturdays of absolute fun and healthy competition in athletics, table tennis, swimming, football, basketball, and taekwondo on the 9th, 16th, and 23rd of February 2019. Venues: Lincoln Community School, Elwak Sports Stadium, and the Burma Camp Sports Complex. Simply log on to myjoyonline.com to register. You can also pick up a form from the front desk of Joy FM or get a copy of the junior graphic for registration forms. For more information, call 0244 471 402 or 0249 862 903. The Joy FM Kids Olympics, where the search for the next global sporting icon begins.
Brothers, the transfer window come again. And you know boys. Before sit down and talk things. Charlie, me that Chelsea sorry button, yeah, be some way crowd. I don't see top self. Why see man you too? And say what they no go buy. Say kofu, ole. As for Liverpool, yeah, it be like them win the EPL radio. As not the space put the Charlie forget to. It be from Christian Kwan.
Football fanatics and discerning viewers and listeners will settle the scores on Transfer Deadline Day with the official transfer team, Joy Sports. We climax the winter transfer window on Thursday, January 31 from 10 p.m. till midnight on the Joy News channel, on Multi TV, Joy Prime, and on Joy 99.7 FM. Transfer Countdown is back and bigger this year. Join the extensive coverage led by George Addo Jr. and Gary Alsmith on Thursday, 31st January between 10 p.m. and midnight as we settle who moves where before the clock runs down.
All right, so thank you very much for staying here with us on the Joy Sports Link on Joy 99.7 FM. Today we're spending time with the president of the Sports Writers Association of Ghana. Legendary within his space, respected not only in Ghana but across the African continent and many parts of the world for the passion with which he has executed his work over the years. The founding editor of the Africa Sports newspaper, a seasoned and celebrated broadcaster television, a seasoned and celebrated FIFA World Cup football commentator, and the accolades continue and continue. We call him the writer. I don't know what you call him. Do you call him Holua? Writer, thank you very much for your time.
No, thanks so much for having me.
You were watching tennis, weren't you?
Osaka nearly gave me a heartache. You know, there's a new kid on the block, Naomi Osaka.
Yeah.
You remember she announced her presence on the world stage
Sure.
when she defeated the great Serena Williams.
Sure.
But a lot of people thought it was just a flash in the pan. But she's been that consistent. And today, playing against Kvitova in the finals of the Australian Open, it was extraordinary. She had won the first set, which was very closely contested, 7-6, had to go to a tie break. And then in the second set, she led 5-3, had 3 championship points, and blew all that. Kvitova came back and leveled up and won the set 7-5.
Yeah.
And then in the final set, and you know what really hit me was the fact that when it was a set-all, Naomi started shedding tears. I didn't understand. I was wondering whether she had psychology at that level of professionalism. Why set-all she would start crying, and she had to take a toilet break, and I had to go and come back. And in the final set, had to compose herself, and it was very, very, very tight indeed, and eventually triumphed. I mean, today will be one of my happiest days. 2 Grand Slams, and today the biggest news for fans of Naomi Osaka is that she is number 1.
She is number 1. These and more are the subjects we'll be discussing here today with the president of the Sports Writers Association of Ghana, Kwabena Yeboah. But of course, as usual, we want to start off by taking a quick look at what is happening this weekend and what we should be expecting, in Europe. Of course, last night, the Manchester United faithful had to endure a few moments of happiness again. And the smiles were broad, the cheers were loud as Manchester United beat Arsenal by 3-1. Well, let's quickly take a look. As usual, George Addo Jr. and our partners, the BBC, had this conversation ahead of the weekend.
Thanks for your time this weekend, and let's begin on a rather emotional note. What's the latest on Cardiff City's Emiliano Sala, and how is the city of Cardiff bracing itself in such difficult times?
Yeah, so the latest is that the family members of Emiliano Sala have been, begging the authorities to continue their search, because the safety rescue authorities have said that they feel that there is now absolutely no chance of finding Emiliano Sala and the pilot who was piloting the aircraft alive. Now, obviously, the family members are desperate for them to keep searching, understandably, but that is the current position. I've seen there have been vigils and shirts and everything laid out in Cardiff, outside the Cardiff City Stadium. And, of course, this is for a player that they never really knew, but I've seen fans outside there talking about Salah and saying, once you're a Bluebird, you're always a Bluebird. And there's also been some very emotive scenes in Nantes, which is where Emiliano Sala had certainly the most impressive part of his career. The fans there absolutely loved him, were devastated when he signed for Cardiff, let alone now. And there were vigils held there, and lots of fans attended ceremonies in Nantes. So I think this is one of those moments where the whole football world mourns, really, but particularly those who knew him, particularly his family and the supporters of clubs like Nantes who knew him, and clubs now like Cardiff who will never get to know him, sadly.
Chelsea next then, and clearly problems at my club. Huge concerns about Mauricio Sarri's reaction to the loss against Arsenal, and Sarri ball looks a bit in disarray. What has gone wrong suddenly at the Stamford Bridge?
Well, I mean, this is only my personal opinion. I think the whole Sarri ball concept is a bit weird at Chelsea, because Sarri ball, you know, it's much more about fast football. It's much about playing through the middle. And Chelsea's best player is Eden Hazard, and he don't want to play through the middle, understandably, because he's a wide player and he's, you know, one of, if not the best players in the world in his position. And yet he's playing in this, you know, what people would call a false nine, basically as a centre forward. Now the problem is he plays fairly well in that position. So if you're Sarri, you can justify playing him there, but you forget just how outstanding he is when played in his natural position. So in that sense, Sarri in general, because of his style, was a strange choice as manager, you could argue, but he's there and he signed Gonzalo Higuain now, and I think Higuain will prove to be a really good addition. You know, he's the kind of player who just gets the best out of everybody around him. You know, he's not only a goal scorer, he also impacts other parts of the team. He's brilliant at finding space and time. I think he's going to score a lot of goals at Stamford Bridge.
Let's round up with latest moves and potential deals involving the EPL's Big Six as the transfer window draws to a close.
Yeah, sure. I can take you through some of the transfer news. Let's start with some reports here in England that Barcelona have been in touch with Manchester United about Juan Mata. Now, that might surprise people, but then this is the marketplace that Barcelona are shopping in at the moment. You know, Mata's out of contract in the summer. You know, we've seen some of the signings Barcelona have just made. Kevin Prince Boateng, you know, of course, who listeners in Ghana will know very well. You know, no disrespect to him. I think it was a surprise that Barcelona bought him, despite the fact that he's been so good in Italy. But, you know, great for Ghana to have one of their international players and, you know, a great player from the past in Ghana in that squad. Manchester City being linked with the Ajax defender Matty de Ligt. He would be a fantastic signing. Manchester United, just in terms of kind of off the pitch transfer news, are being linked to a guy called Andrea Berta. He's the sporting director at Atletico Madrid. United have confirmed, obviously, that they want a sporting director for next season. He could be a really good signing. Roma director of football Monchi, who's a legend in that role because he signed all the players that made Sevilla into a great European force. He is being linked with moving to Arsenal. The Arsenal sporting director Sven Mislintat has recently announced that he's leaving. And in terms of Premier League teams, the brother of Manchester United striker Romelu Lukaku, Jordan Lukaku, who's a Belgian defender, is close to tying up a loan move to Newcastle.
Thank you very much for staying here with us on Joy 99.7 FM. Remember that we are live on Facebook. We're streaming live, and of course, we'll be live tweeting the show. So you also join us. Remember, it's 0244340437. Later on, we will activate the phone line. All right, so just before we get into the conversations with Kwabena Yeboah, the president of the Sports Writers Association of Ghana, I have a message for you, beloved in sport. Beloved in sport, once again, as I always say, I'm glad to be in your company as this is the last Saturday of the first month of the year 2019. Now today, I wish to add my voice to the many Ghanaians who are celebrating with our brothers and sisters in Dagbang on the enskinment of the new Yana. Now this definitely signifies a new path for the people and a renewed commitment to develop the people and their state. I say this because I have a proverbial biological linkage with the northern region. I've pursued some social work in sports and specifically in amateur boxing under my good friend's organization. I'm talking about the McDan Foundation, founded by Dr. Daniel Macaulay, who is also the Gubana of Tamale. Also, some months back, I joined my friends at the Aliu Mahama Foundation, led by the late former Vice President's son, Alhaji Farouk Aliu Mahama, to execute a weekend of social activity in Yendi. Now, we cleaned up the Yendi Hospital, the market, and gathered at the Yendi Football Park, which is not too far away from the Gbewa Palace, for a football gala. Now, I was in the company of some friends, including the legendary Alhaji Karim Gruza, founder of King Faisal Football Club, who are famed for producing the likes of Sami Osei Kuffour, one of Ghana's most decorated footballers internationally. We sat over a few hours at the Yendi Park and were amazed at the raw skill displayed by some of these players whom were teenagers. Now, we enjoyed the game because it gave us hope that we will see the production of great footballers from Yendi who can make waves in our local league and others around the world and also serve our national teams. I was also glad to have taken part in the Aliu Mahama Memorial Cup game on that grassless pitch at the Yendi Park because it brought a simple realization that if we invest in infrastructure like pitches and academies and the technical aspect of the game, which includes the training and retraining of coaches from that area, the Dagban state, which was once a place of uncertainty security-wise, could now become Ghana's platinum football mine. Investments in football in Dagbang can bring immeasurable social and economic benefits to the people. Please remember that Yendi has already produced a vice president in the late Alhaji Aliu Mahama, and in the same way can produce a global football star. So let's just see what happens in the future. Finally, I want to touch on our infrastructure building efforts in the sports sector, beloved in sport. Now, in late November 2016, President John Dramani Mahama commissioned the Trust Sports Emporium, under which the main facility is the Bukom Boxing Arena. Now, the other facilities in the Emporium were not complete. So you all know Nathaniel Atto is not a politician and I know very well why a politician will commission a project like that at that particular time in an election year. But guess what? I agree with the decision because immediately the facility was opened, promoters trooped there and started organizing boxing tournaments there. It was there to address a pressing infrastructural need. Now, as a stakeholder in boxing, I have lost count of the number of boxing events that have been held at the Bukom Boxing Arena since it was opened. Now, the United Kingdom's most decorated boxing coach, Sir Terry Edwards, with all his exposure internationally, told me at the Bukom Boxing Arena that that facility was one of the best he has seen around the world because it was purpose-built. In a similar conversation with a technical producer director of DSTV Supersport, he said a similar thing about the Bukom Arena. But the boxing edifice is just one of many adjoining facilities within the Sports Emporium. Now, it has an Olympic-sized swimming pool, a gym, a 2,000-seater hall, a sports school, and a physiotherapy center. This edifice is a partnership between ETC Polska of Poland and SNIT. All I am asking at this time is that the finishing touches to the facility be expedited. I'm saying all of these things because I come from the Ododo constituency where this facility is situated. And I know how many talents are begging to be discovered in boxing, swimming, and other indoor sporting disciplines. I crave the indulgence of the government through SNIT to finish the Trust Sports Emporium so it can be put to full use. Please push the completion process of the Trust Sports Emporium because posterity will tell us a good sporting story. We will continue this part of this sermon with all of you, beloved in sports, next week. But right now, let's focus on the main discussion with the president of the Sports Writers Association of Ghana, the writer, Mr. Kwabena Yeboah. Thank you once again for joining us.
Thanks so much.
You know, we have... We've been monitoring you. We noticed that you were present with many other greats in terms of sports journalism at the biggest convergence of, minds in sports journalism at the AIPS Congress, which was recently held. Tell me what your major takeouts were from the AIPS Congress.
For the purposes of our listeners, let me just say that the AIPS is the umbrella body of all sports journals from around the world.
Yeah, sure.
And every single year, a venue is picked where all sports journals around the world congregate and deliberate about sporting issues and issues concerning our profession. So this year, we chose Lausanne and Switzerland, and as many as 102 countries were represented. I was very, very excited. And for the first time, there was an award ceremony where sports journalists were awarded in several categories, film production, writing, and several awards. This is the first time it was done. And Jonathan Edwards was the MC for that particular event. That was the first day. You remember Jonathan Edwards, the former Olympian long jumper.
Sure.
So this time around, we met and basically just deliberated over issues affecting our profession. And I was excited to see Anas Aremi Anas there to talk about investigative journalism. To be honest, I didn't know he had been invited for that particular event. So the second day when I saw him deliver that lecture, I was quite intrigued and excited.
Wow.
And he screened a number of his works and climaxed it with the number 12, which brought Ghana football to its knees. And listening to him and looking at the audience, I just realized that most of them were just overawed by this incredible personality. And I remember Gianni Melo, who is the president of AIPS, make the point that, look, a number of them have conducted investigative work over the years, but Anas makes all of them look like toddlers, you know.
I see.
Yeah, and during question time, a number of them asked him how he survives, whether he uses his real name, which is Anas Aremi or Anas, and how he survives in Ghana, because the kind of risk that he takes, they can't believe that he's able to live in this country. And his point was that he's not just excited about doing an investigative piece and publishing and people reading it for their comfort in their homes. He said, no, that is not what excites him. He doesn't think that is what journalism is about. Although people would question the methodology, you know, and the fact that he resorts to sting operation and undercover journalism. And his point is that when people have been responsible for the murders of others in society, he doesn't think that just doing an investigative piece is enough. He believes that chasing those people, getting them arrested and jailed is the ultimate. And that is what excites him, you know. A number of people also questioning the methodology. And again, you know, in Ghana, that question has been raised as to whether the issue of entrapment is allowed. And my answer is very, very simple. If Anas's work and his methodology, I mean his style, is something that is unaccepted, I do not think that great leaders like former President of the United States of America, Obama, will be lauding Anas when he came to Ghana. I do not think that the former UN Secretary General, the late Kofi Annan, may so rest in peace, will be lauding Anas. And indeed, most great personalities from around the world have lauded the work of Anas. And I do not think that an umbrella body like the AIPS would invite Anas and be so excited about his work. Because I keep making the point that indeed in journalism, sting operation is permitted, unless you don't know what our profession is all about. Undercover journalism is permitted. I remember a case where one BBC reporter pretended to be a worker at Heathrow and worked there as undercover for 2 years and uncovered a lot of rot at Heathrow years back. And I cite the example of Nima, the CNN lady, who uncovered how black guys were being sold in Libya. But for that undercover piece, how was it possible that it was going to be uncovered that human beings were being sold in this day and age? You know, so I'm saying that people would have divergent views on this particular subject, but in our profession, undercover journalism is permitted. And I think that of course, there are consequences and there are legal implications, but I believe that those who resort to that methodology also know about the consequences and the legal implications, and I think they get all those covered to ensure that they have sufficient and adequate protection for the job that they did. So it was a very, very successful AIPS Congress in Lausanne, and I'm very excited. I'm looking forward to the next one, which will be in London in February.
Now, let's come back home. In terms of our sports, one of the major areas that many people are talking about is the normalization process and the efforts to want to get our football back on track. Now, the normalization committee is supposed to wrap up its work in March. And we've had loads of feedback from major stakeholders. In recent times, we've heard the general manager of Kumasi Asante Kotoko say that, look, I don't think that they've done much, and I do not see them completing their mandate within the set time. You know, we've had loads of feedback, and at least from a certain point, we know that we're expecting a competition next month. Your thoughts from where you sit, your observations about what has been done so far at the level of the Normalization Committee.
Well, before I go to answer the question, let me first commend Dr. Kofi Amoah, the chairman of the Normalization Committee, and his team, because what happened to Ghana was extraordinary. I mean, growing up, if anybody had predicted that this was going to happen to Ghana, I don't think that, I think I would have dismissed it. But Ghana football was brought to its knees following the number 12, the expose by Anas, Aremi Anas, and it was obvious that something had to be done because time and time, some of us spoke about the rot in Ghana football. And I remember that having ascended the throne as the president of SWAG in my second year during the award ceremony, when I raised concern about the rot in our football, a number of my friends at Galka and within the football fraternity, I didn't take kindly to that at all. But I thought most people were playing the ostrich and people were being very hypocritical. You had to be extremely dishonest to ignore the fact that our football had gotten extremely rotten. And I'm not singling one particular person out. All of us were very, very guilty within the context that, look, almost everybody involved in Ghana football was involved in one form of corruption or the other. I mean, some people were caught on tape by Anas. Unfortunately, they were unfortunate, but quite an overwhelming majority of people involved in football who were not caught were involved in corrupt activities. You know, so yes, a few referees were caught, but can those who were not caught on the tape look us in the eye and tell us that they were not involved in acts of bribery and corruption? Football administrators, some of the journalists, you know, some of the fans involved in acts of... So, I don't know, but I thought something had to be done, and it had to take the intervention of Anas to get to this point. And at that point, you needed somebody with extreme maturity and level-headedness, you know, and a very discerning mind to come and normalize the situation, as it were. And I thought picking Kofi Amoah was the right thing to do. Again, you needed a personality who was going to be accepted by the rank and file. And I thought he came in handy, together with his team, Nardo Foley, Lucy Quist, and Kofi Duadonting. You know, having said that, let me quickly say that I have not been too excited about work done so far. I say this within the context that I thought some agency would have been injected into it, because committees have been constituted, you know. And yesterday I spoke to a member of the Normalization Committee, and I was asking a few questions, and he was of the view that yes, it's a tedious job, and that the teams that have been put together would bring ideas about how to move forward. And I got a bit surprised, because I thought this would have been done at the early stages of their reign, you know. So to give this information to us at this time disturbs me a bit. And I personally do not think that 6 months is such a limited time for Ghana football to be stabilized, for the new group to take over. I don't think so. I personally think that 6 months is a very, very long time. Very long time. And I say this within the context of their defined responsibilities. And what are we talking about? FIFA had total clarity about what they had to do. Number one, that they had to run the day-to-day administration of Ghana football, which I believe they've done exceedingly well, because they're running the secretariat brilliantly, and they've been responsible for the national teams in our international games. And I think we haven't had any hiccups in that regard. Number two, FIFA was very clear. Now look at the statutes of the FA. And number three, look at the accounts of the FA. And then trigger elections. And I'm just wondering that if this is the mandate, I'm wondering why 6 months is such a limited time to execute this program that you need.
So then the whole focus on a competition, getting a competition going, which got some amount of delay because, look, Normalization Committee proposes that we're going to play this format of a competition. The clubs come in initially and they say, no, we're not accepting it. And then after some amount of consideration, they come back and say, okay, you know something, let's do this together. All of that took away some of the time.
I think Dr. Kofi Amoah had a very good heart in coming up with that proposal. He was of the view that most of the clubs had been idle, and the players had been idle, and because of that, some of the clubs had complained that because of the idleness, some of them were not being paid. So out of that concern, he thought that they had to get busy. But respectfully, I do not think that was his business. I don't think that was his mandate, because he was taking up a responsibility that was, for me, he was biting more than he could chew. Because you remember, initially he thought he had to really make them very comfortable by coming up with a package that was quite lucrative. So what he decided to do was to go looking for sponsorship. And again, because that game has been tainted so much, most members of the corporate world were unprepared to get involved, with our football. So he just realized, he was hit by the reality that it wasn't easy raising that kind of money to organize that competition. And he was looking at as much as 7.2 million Ghana cedis. That's a huge amount for that kind of competition he wanted to organize. And it didn't end there. He didn't secure the money, so he had to appeal to government to give him that kind of money. Again, there was that huge delay until he came up with that format. Respectfully, I do not think that he had any business going that tangent. Look, you have been given a responsibility. Look at the statutes of the FA. And I do not think that you need eternity to review the statutes of the FA. And let's not pretend as though we don't have statutes. We have statutes, but we do know that we know the problematic areas. For example, there are areas that you can look at, and fortunately for you, quite a number of identifiable bodies had come up with papers you could look at. You can marry that with your own vision, and look at the best practices around the world and move forward. But that did not happen. And as I indicated, look, it's not as though we don't have statutes. So, for example, a lot of people have expressed concern about some of the problematic areas where, for example, the president of the FA would appoint his own vice, as opposed to what pertained previously. So, for example, we can eliminate that. Again, areas of tenure, for instance, where in the past there was no cap. We could look at that and say, look, you can't go beyond 2-3 terms. We can agree on that. We can look at areas like whether or not, if you run a club directly, you'll still be eligible to contest the FA presidency. We can look at all those. So the point I'm making is that it's not as though we're drafting an entirely new statute. So I do not see much difficulty there, and I do not think that you even need more than 1 month to do that. Number two, looking at the accounts of the FA, I do not think, again, you need eternity to really look at the accounts of the FA. And then FIFA says, having looked at that, trigger elections, go for elections. And isn't it interesting that most important aspect of the mandate, the team to even start looking at the election process, is not being put in place? We have a number of committees put in place. We don't have any committee to look at that. I find it a bit curious. Before coming here yesterday, there were rumors all over the country that the NC, led by Dr. Kofi Amor, is seeking extension, and FIFA is granting them 2 years. I did my own checks and realized that it was not true. And you and I know that there is this rumor that and the suspicion that they would not meet the 6-month period, and that they would definitely seek extension. I'll be very disappointed if that were to happen. I'll be very honest with you. I don't see why Ghana football cannot be normalized within 6 months. I cannot, and I don't understand. If there are examples, the side example of Cameroon, Ghana is not Cameroon. We're hit by the Matol, the next expose. It's not as if everybody in Ghana football was caught on the tape. It was not everybody who was culpable. It was not everybody who was tagged a criminal. So why do we pretend that we have to reinvent the wheel? I don't think so. Yes, we had a kind of revolution had to start, but I do not think that we need more than 6 months to do that. And I'm hoping that the rumors, have absolutely no basis, because indeed, if by the end of 31st of March, we have not gone for elections and the normalization committee will be seeking extension, I will be extremely disappointed.
You mentioned elections, and at the point where, structures have been put in place and the process is laid out for everybody to see, the major players will be those who put themselves up for, especially the presidency.
That's right.
Now, Fred Papo, the former vice president, has put himself up. He's stated his intentions. Another former vice president in George Afriyie has stated his intentions, Nana Amponsah. Also, recently we also heard, Kujo Fiano has interest in the position.
Palmer?
Winfred Osei,
Palmer?
seasoned football administrator Winfred Osei of Tema Youth fame also has stated his
Alhaji
intention.
Grusa?
Alhaji Karim Gruza. Okay. So, you're laughing.
No. I'm excited about the names that are popping up.
Okay.
The Alhaji Grusa has been quite magnanimous to suggest that if he became the president, I will be his assistant.
I see.
To try and translate a lot of the things that he was saying.
But this is not the first time Alhaji Gruza has, mentioned the intention to want to lead the Ghana FA.
He's always been very, very positive. And he's always had about this strong view that he commands the wherewithal to lead Ghana football. So he's contested before. I remember he contested Galka during when Herbert Mensah was there.
Of course.
And he lost. He's contested a number of times, but he's never been that successful. I guess people underestimate him because they do not think that he's extremely literate to lead Ghana football. And he rubbishes that assertion within the context that, look, he's a scholar in Arabic. And so if he cannot speak English language like the Queen, it can be translated.
And that is a very key point.
Absolutely. I mean, if it's about football administration, only few people in Ghana can match
his experience.
His experience.
And what he knows.
You spoke about Osei Kuffour being a major part of the personalities he produced. As far back as the early 70s, he unmet players like Abdul Karim, the Golden Boy, Razak, Opoku Afriyie, were all his products from the Coles football. So he's been in football all his life, So, but as I said, that is a subject for another time. But I don't know. But those who have put themselves up for elections may be in for a little surprise. Because if my information is right, the new statutes I'm not too sure about that, but may not be too kind to them. Because one of the areas that I think the NC will be looking at is whether or not if you run your club directly, you should be eligible to also run the FA. Because there is that belief that there will be, it's tantamount to conflict of interest, So I don't know whether people are putting themselves out, are jumping the gun. A lot of people have also said, opinions are divided on this particular subject.
Sure.
There are people who believe that whoever has had some form of association with the past should not be allowed to be contesting. That would also be contested by those who are putting themselves out for the presidency. So it's quite interesting. A personality like George Afriyie announced his candidature long before we had our problems. And it was one of the key reasons.
This is at his 50th birthday party.
Absolutely. And it was one of the key reasons why the former president, Kwesi Nyantakyi, for instance, fell out with him, because he felt he had been betrayed by him. And George's argument was that he did that because Kwesi himself had announced that he was no longer going to contest. And at the point that he expressed interest to contest, he hadn't reneged on that position. So he didn't find anything wrong with that. But it's interesting. It doesn't seem as if you have very fresh candidates, as many Ghanaians would have expected. And moving forward, a lot of people would have felt that we needed a new breath of air, but it looks like quite a number of the old guards are the ones chasing the seat. Someone like Fred Papo, for instance, the early days of Kwesi Nyantakyi, he together with Randy Abbey were together with Kwesi Nyantakyi. We called them the three musketeers, the three wise men. They were very, very close indeed, and then they fell out. Nyantakyi moved on. They lost their seats. So it's going to be quite interesting. But as I indicated, the rules have not even been set out for us to know who and who are eligible to contest.
You made a very interesting point about how it is possible that new rules will not allow certain people to take part in this election. That then should also open up for a lot of resorting to the legal processes to get their way in there.
It's going to be quite interesting because so far as they're concerned, they would believe that everybody has a right to contest. But as I said, is it a case that the new statutes will be contested in the law courts? And if that is to happen, How long is that going to take? I guess if we get to that point, probably that will be where the normalization committee will have to seek extension, and whether or not we'll come back to normal times is going to be quite interesting, because I do not think that the status quo is going to remain. I don't think so. From where I sit and from information I'm gathering, I think a lot is going to change, particularly regarding the statutes. And
very well.
I doubt very, very much whether or not people who directly run clubs are going to have the luxury.
Yeah, and this is a conversation that
yeah.
we've had severally about, people who own clubs and also play roles at the FA level.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've made that point over and over. I mean, and any time that point is made, you find club owners who want to contest the presidency argue that you do not expect carpenters or shoemakers to come and lead the FA. And this is where we develop the terminology football people. They believe that football must be run by football people. And if people care to know, recently when that lady was appointed as the CEO of EPL, I do not think that she had any footballing background at all. She didn't own any club. She had no footballing background. He was just an administrator, an astute administrator who was mandated to go and run the EPL. We're talking about the English Premier League. I mean, one of the foremost leagues in the world, okay? But the lady who was appointed to go and run it was not involved in any club administration, So we have to be very, very careful how we advance that argument. And I keep making the point that if you go back into our history, it's not as though carpenters and lawyers were the ones who were necessarily running our football, If you go back to the days of Ohinijan did not own a club, but he goes down as one of the best administrators of this country ever produced. He rose to the ranks of becoming the vice president of FIFA, and during his tenure, we won quite a number of trophies. Moving forward, after Ohinijan, we had a number of football administrators who did not directly run the clubs. We had the likes of Fredia Mensah, who didn't run any particular club. We had the likes of SK Manu. Yes, SK Manu had some affiliation with Kotoko, but did not run Kotoko. He was FA president in '82 when we qualified for the Cup of Nations in Libya, and may his soul rest in peace. Those days, I keep making the point that administrators, ascended the throne out of love and passion. And SK Manu used his own resources to camp the Black Stars before we went to Libya, where we went and won the Cup of Nations for the 4th time. Yeah. We've had the likes of Zach Bintum, who was the managing director of BP. Yes, he was had some affiliation with Dwarfs, but did not run Dwarfs directly. We had
HB Nyamite.
Yeah. Yes, he was associated with Hearts of Oak. I was not running Hearts of Oak. Lotia Kayinsu, Vipers. He did not run Vipers. So the point that is being made right now is that if you are the chairman, for instance, of Club A, and you go to run the FA, how are you going to be sure, as human as you are, that your club would not gain certain favors? And on paper, there would always be that separation of powers, but in reality, there will always be that conflict of interest. So it's an area. I'm not saying that I'm drawing conclusions on this particular subject, but I do know that it's an area the NC is looking at critically, and people will be surprised at what would come out. So I'm not too sure whether people are not jumping the gun.
Still here on the Joy Sports Link on Joy 99.7 FM. Kwabena Yeboah, the writer, the Sports Writers Association of Ghana's president, the president of SWAG, is here with us, discussing a whole range of issues. At this time, we're tackling the Normalization Committee's work and the processes. We're talking Ghana football. There are some messages here. There's this one. It says, hello, Nat, thanks. You've brought our legend sports icon to your show today. Wishing him all the best in his endeavor. This is from Richard Esiama, who's listening from the Dam City. Akosombo. There's another one here that says, talking of tennis, please ask the writer who he fancies winning the men's division tomorrow, Novak or, Rafa. Okay, Atuafo in Kumasi. Okay, so he'll answer that question in a bit. Okay, so remember to keep the messages coming in. It's 0244340437, 0244340437. Of course, if you just joined us, Kwabena Yeboah has been speaking on a range of issues. He says that he thinks that the normalization committee veered off the track a little bit in going into the area of organizing a competition, looking for the funding and all of that. He thinks they should stay within the mandate. Get the statutes sorted out, get the accounts sorted out, and conduct an election. Also, he talks about his expectations of the election that will eventually get us a new leader and a new set of leaders for the Ghana FA. He says that he thinks that club owners and club administrators are at risk. He possibly sees that new laws that will be created could just get them out or make them ineligible to stand for these positions. So you join us as well with your thoughts. But of course, remember here on Joy Sports, a lot is coming up, especially as we look up towards the end of the month.
Brothers, the transfer window come again. And you know, boys. Before sit down and talk things. Charlie, me, that Chelsea sorry bought in there. Be some way crowd. I don't see top self. Why I see Man U too? And say what they no go buy. Say Kofu, ole. As for Liverpool, it be like them win the EPL radio. That's not the space put there, Charlie, forget to. It be from Christian.
Football fanatics and discerning viewers and listeners will settle the scores on Transfer Deadline Day with the official transfer team, Joy Sports. We climax the winter transfer window on Thursday, January 31 from 10 p.m. till midnight on the Joy News channel on Multi TV, Joy Prime, and on Joy 99.7 FM. Transfer Countdown is back and bigger this year. Join the extensive coverage led by George Addo Jr. and Gary Alsmith on Thursday, 31st January between 10 p.m. and midnight as we settle who moves where before the clock runs down.
Okay, so you know what to expect, and it will be a simulcast. We'll be on radio and on television. So live here on Joy 99.7 FM and also on the Joy News channel on Multi TV. Remember, Joy News is on channel 421 on your DSTV. All right, so Kwabena Yeboah, the writer, will take the question on the possible choice for who wins the Australian Open men's title tomorrow. Novak Djokovic or Rafael Benitez?
Well, Novak looks like clinching it. You know, I don't know, but he's had an extraordinary comeback. You remember only a few months ago, he had to have this surgery. And not many people believed that he could come back. When he returned, he was being beaten in the first round, second round, and was playing some very poor tennis. Suddenly he's come back, and he is on a winning trail. If you watched him in this Australian Open, he's just phenomenal. He's just lost 4 sets, you know. And Rafael is also playing some great tennis. If you watched the game yesterday against Tsitsipas, who beat the great Roger Federer 3-1. And if you saw the way Rafael handled him in the final set, not the final set, but the third set, it was in straight sets. Yeah. The third set, Nadal won 6-0, you know. And the reason is very simple. You know, Nadal with his left-handed and with his high lobs to the backhand of single-handers is always a problem. And there's a reason Roger Federer is always struggling against Nadal, because he's left-handed and he lobs the ball so high to their backhand, and once you are single-handed, you struggle to cope with that kind of stroke. And there's a reason Tsitsipas struggle against Nadal. Against Djokovic, Djokovic is double-handed, and he feels very comfortable with the backhand with those loops. So it's a reason, if you check the statistics, he's beating Rafael more than Rafael has done. The last time they met Wimbledon, it was a 5-setter. Tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m. time, I can see another epic game, but at the end, I can just see Djokovic winning his 15th Grand Slam.
Okay. All right. So there's a lot of, we're getting loads and loads of text messages. We'll do our best to go through as many of them as we can. We're still talking the normalization process. We're still talking football matters. Let me just quickly try to retrieve a few of them. I see some very interesting questions. Well, okay. So, writer, someone is asking, Fred in Takrady is asking, why did you turn down the position of sports minister? Were you ever offered the position of sports minister when Nana Akufo-Addo the Nana Akufo-Addo administration started its work?
No.
Okay, so Fred, that's wrong information. Kwabena Yeboah has never been offered the sports minister's position, but that just brings to mind.
No.
Have you? I mean, you've grown great relationships over time, and I'm very sure that along the line, a certain level of opportunity to lead in the political space has beckoned you at a certain point.
I've been asked this question several times. I was never offered the substantive position. I was offered the deputy sports minister, but
for this administration?
Not this administration.
Previous?
There were attempts. I mean, there was some lobbying that was going on.
Okay.
But I turned it down.
Okay.
But in previous administration, yes, it did happen. But I don't know why we keep revisiting this particular subject. I feel very uncomfortable discussing that. But I keep making the point that I do not think that you only serve your nation when
you're a politician.
You're a politician or you're a sport minister. I think that we all can serve in different capacities. And also growing up. I think I grew up in an era where we didn't have politics during the days of Jerry John Rawlings, all those years. So I don't know, but I never developed that penchant for hard political positions. So I've never felt very comfortable doing that.
Okay.
Whichever way I can contribute my quota, but to become, it's not something I feel very comfortable about.
I don't see any serious changes coming into the GFA. Same faces, same corruption, same level of mediocrity in the league and the Black Stars. This is from Alfie. Your thoughts?
I do not think that is a very fair comment because the fact that some people have been around for a long time does not mean that everybody is corrupt. Yes, there have been a number of corrupt people in the system, and but I think there are also some decent ones. After all, during the NAS expose, two fine gentlemen declined the offer of bribery. So I believe that there are still some very decent people who have been around for a very long time, and these are people who love the sport. Unfortunately for us, if you're talking about people with so-called clean hands outside the sporting space, it's not everybody who wants to come and lead, So it's the same people who love the sport, who are interested in it, who would offer themselves for these leadership positions. But I guess moving forward, because of what has happened to us, people will be more careful, and I think we need to put in place checks and balances to ensure that the tsunami that hit Ghana football never recurs.
It will be a great injustice to we listeners if you let Mr. Kwabena Yeboah leave the studios without giving us his favorite catchphrase, Olua. This is from Kelly Inosu. Okay, I'll do that when we're getting towards the end of the show. Now, there's another one here that says, Kwabena Yeboah is such a gem and elated with his commentaries on the show so far. I think the normalization committee have done fairly well, but they haven't done enough to achieve their core mandate. That is normalize football, look again into the very statutes that govern our football, which hasn't been good enough. Good show, Nathaniel Atto. Let's link up, bro. This is from Dr. Melody in Santa Maria. Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Melody, and keep listening to the show. Okay, so, and talking normalization, one main branch under their work is the managing of the national teams. The Black Stars are in the next Africa Cup of Nations for Egypt 2019. As we build up to mid-2019, the subject of the trophy drought, which has hit us for over 30 years, will come up. What would you be thinking about when we start getting close to the time for Egypt 2019, for the next AFCON?
I do not think that our Ghanaians would accept anything other than the ultimate trophy. Because over the years, I think we've played in a number of our semi-finals. We played in the finals. Angola 2010, we played in the finals, lost narrowly to Egypt. We played in the finals a few years ago. We lost again on penalties to Cote d'Ivoire. We've been in semi-final 2012. We're in the semi-finals under Plavi. Kosiapia himself, when he took over, we got to the semi-finals. So having got into the semi-final and the finals, I think the only thing people will be expecting will be the trophy itself. And anything short of that will be considered a failure. But is that to suggest that we would definitely go and win the trophy? I do not think so. I think if you want to be very realistic, there are 24 teams going out there, each one of them very desirous of winning the trophy. And when it comes to the Cup of Nations, I mean, it can be so perplexing as uncertain. I do not think that the year, for instance, Zambia won the Cup. Many pundits and connoisseurs of the game believe that Zambia were going to win the trophy. Nigeria had missed out a number of years. They hadn't even qualified for the Cup of Nations itself. When Stephen Keshi took over, not many people believed Nigeria were going to win the trophy. That was the year they won. He had sidelined some of the prima donnas of the team, the likes of Odemwingie, and some of the high-profile players, brought in the likes of Sunday from the local scene, and they won the trophy. So it's a very, very uncertain terrain. And to suggest that because a team did not win the trophy means that it's such a bad side or such failure, I don't know. I think you'll be overstretching the point. I don't know whether I'm very, very confident that in 2019 we will definitely, in Egypt, Ghana will definitely win the trophy. I do not think I've gotten strong signals to suggest to me that we are ready to go and win the trophy. As I indicated, football is an uncertain sport. I guess there was only one time that all Ghanaians, all of us believed we were definitely going to win the Africa Cup, which we won, and that was in 1978. And I thought the preparation at that time was extraordinary. I keep reminding our listeners that was a time we had a head of state who was so committed to sport and in particular football. The former president, head of state, Ignatius Kutua Champong, who made himself the commissioner for sports at the time and appointed a special assistant, Sipar Asante. And if you remember those days, he himself would come to the camp and check their needs and all that. So I remember in 77, for instance, he decided that the entire team, I remember he came to come and asked them which nation in the world knew how to play football. Everybody said Brazil. They said, okay, you guys are going to Brazil. And the whole team went to Brazil for the first 3 months, came back. That particular year, remember, we didn't play the normal league. We played what we call the Novelty League, where Hazakes won that league that particular year. And the entire team, Black Stars team, went to Brazil for 3 months, came back to see their family, went back again, and spent almost a whole year in camp. So that particular year, almost everybody knew that we're going to win the trophy. Although we were very strong contenders, that particular year. I mean, Nigeria were so strong at that time. It was extraordinary. And I remember Tunisia, too, were very, very strong. That was when Razak earned his title, the Golden Boy, having scored the goal against Tunisia. Nigeria, we struggled a great deal. They scored the first goal, and Willie Kluche had to come on to cancel the lead. So the point I'm making is that apart from that year, I do not think that there had been any year where we had been cocksure that we're definitely going to win the trophy, that we won the trophy. I mean, when we hosted the competition in 2008, for instance, almost everybody believed that we're going to win the trophy. We did not win. We had some great team. Their peers, the Asians, the John Mensons. That was a great team. We hosted to win. We did not win. So I do not think that around this time when we're even not too sure who and who are going to play, who will be in the first 11, and it's not as if we have such an extraordinary team, anybody can say that we're definitely going to win. That is not to say that we cannot win, but I do not think that, yes, Ghana will be among the contenders, but particularly I'm not too sure that we can put our hand, hit our chest and say we're definitely going to win the Africa Cup of Nations. We would have to tread cautiously. As we speak, there are still issues of who and who even has to be part of the team. Too many issues unsettled as we speak. Suddenly, the issue of Kevin Prince Boateng pops up. Should he be part of the team? Should he be part of the team?
What do you think? Should he be part of the team? Would you welcome him back?
My position has not changed at all. I don't mince words on that. I do not think that I do not have patience for people who think that we owe them anything. and think that are bigger than the nation. I mean, Kevin Prince Boateng, this is a gentleman who we all loved years back when his team was relegated, Portsmouth, and he was the one pushing the frontiers for us to get him involved in the national team. We got him involved, and in 2010 he was absolutely fantastic. He was brilliant, and I've heard a number of commentators suggest that he was one of the reasons why, I mean, we even got that far in South Africa. But what happened after South Africa? What did he do? He turned his back on us for the next 4 years. 4 years. During that time, I mean, people were committed to the national cause, paid their dues to the national team and qualified us to the World Cup. And what did he do? He proved very, very opportunistic at the time. As soon as we were on the verge of qualifying for the World Cup, he came back.
And he scored a goal.
He scored a goal, but what happened? He showed so much indiscipline during the World Cup, isn't it? And was thrown out of the World Cup. Yes, he's not playing badly, but what people forget that if you're constituting a team, it's not just about who can play. It's also about temperament. It's also about discipline. And there's a reason that Roy Keane, for instance, the great Roy Keane, Ireland threw him out of the World Cup when they were on the world scene. I mean, we can cite example after example after example. What happened to the great Cantona? Wasn't he thrown out of the World Cup before France won the World Cup on home soil? You can go on and on. So it's not just a question of, you do not need a character who will be cancerous to the dressing room. It's a team effort, okay? So, but people have different opinions, and I'm not going to argue with whoever holds a divergent opinion. If the manager of the side decides that moving forward, he wants him to be part of the team, so be it. But if I was in charge of the team, there is absolutely no way that for all the commitment shown by those who have held the fort up to this stage, I would bring in. There's no I'm going to do that. So my position is very clear.
Okay. Another position that you've been very clear on is your support for and belief in Kwesi Appiah, the Black Stars coach.
Yeah.
You still believe in him?
I'm just wondering why I would change that stance. There's no, I mean, I do not have any reason to alter that stance. And people, no prophet is acceptable in his own country. And for all the work that Kwesi has done for the national team, I'm just wondering why people still think that he's not good enough or we need a white person to come handle the national team. I get really, really surprised. If you remember the first time he bounced on the scene, and people forget that this is a man who has seen it all. From his days as a player from Mine Stars to Kodoko, and as assistant coach of Kodoko and then the substantive coach, he had coached Goldfields in those days, and even at the national level had become the assistant to a number of managers before ascending the throne. He had done his badges in the UK, had gone to coach, getting some exposure in Sudan, handled the national team, gone to the World Cup, come back, and check the team that he built before Avram Grant took over. He built a team which Grant took over. We went to the Cup of Nations. Remember, we lost to Cote d'Ivoire in the final during the penalty shootout. And check the number of players he has unearthed. I mean, who knew a player like Lomo Agbanyanu? You and I didn't know him from Adam. And this is one of the best left-sided players on the continent, So
Christian Achu, Kwesi Appiah, the striker.
That's right.
Yeah.
You can go on and on and on, And it amazes me how he's able to unearth these talents. Look, when he decided to, he knew that we're definitely going to qualify for the Cup of Nations. So what he decided to do was that he needed to give everybody the opportunity to showcase his talent and then conclude on who would constitute the final team for the Nations Cup. So he gave almost everybody the opportunity. The likes of Jamna were all given the chance. The Warriors was given the chance. And at certain stages, when he even sidelined players like Wakasu, like Jordan, like Dede, people started raising questions. And he was clear. He said, look, I know these guys. I want to give the opportunity to some of these guys because we will definitely qualify for the Cup.
So that means you support a blend of players as against what some countries did. For instance, Cameroon, when they won the last Nations Cup and did away with all the big names and the sort of established players and all of that and brought a whole new set and won the Nations Cup. Well, what would you prescribe?
I don't think that in football, 1 + 1 is never 2. It's a very complex arena we find ourselves. So what may work for another country may not necessarily work for us. You must look at your own situation and devise means of arriving at your goal. So far as we were concerned, I mean, there were all these new talents on the scene who had to be looked at. Kojo Poku, for instance, in the United States, had to be looked at. Quite a number of these boys. Having looked at all of them and convinced that, look, now this is the team that I have confidence in. He's still on his final team. And there's a reason getting to the Cup of Nations, I do know that he has total clarity about the squad that will go to the Cup of Nations. And I find absolutely nothing wrong with what he's done. We've suddenly, in our central defense, for instance, likes of Nuhu has been Annette in court, and he's absolutely brilliant, so Kasim. So I think that he is on the right track. That is not to suggest that he would get it 100%. No coach in the world gets it 100%. Absolutely no coach. There are times that your tactics or your strategy, your views, your modus operandi may not necessarily sit well with people. But every coach has clarity of vision, and I think Kosi has total clarity.
So with this clarity, clarity of vision, why then don't we marry it into believing that he can win the Nations Cup? Because you've said that you don't think we...
Yeah, the point I'm making is that every coach goes into the Cup of Nations to go and win the trophies in it. There is not just a single trophy out there to be won by Ghana. Every coach going to the Cup of Nations in Egypt wants to go and win the trophy. So the fact that you have done your homework doesn't mean that you are necessarily going to win the trophy. Look at all the teams that have qualified. All the top teams in Africa have qualified for the Cup of Nations. Egypt are still very, very strong. Cameroon are there, Nigerians, and all these teams. So the point I'm making is that I think sometimes it's quite presumptuous, isn't it? And smacks of haughtiness and superciliousness to suggest that because you have qualified for the Cup of Nations, you are definitely going to win. Yes, you've done everything right. But at the end of the day, winning a trophy is not just about one man called the coach. It's a multiple of factors, And for example, you've done everything right. You go into a match, for instance, you earn a penalty, and your best penalty taker goes to fluff his lines. How are you going to hold the coach responsible for that? And it's the reason, if you remember, in 2006, when we went to the Cup of Nations, I remember in Egypt, and we exited in the preliminaries. We lost to Zimbabwe, for instance, by 3-1. And everybody was like, no, the coach had to be fired. I was a lone voice advocating that there was no way you had to fire the coach. Why? Because I keep making the point, coaches don't play football, footballers play football. And if you have brilliant materials, I mean, they would express the wishes of the coach. So in 2006, for instance, we went to the Cup of Nations missing quite a number of our players. If you remember, Asian did not play. Apia struggled. Asamoah was not there. Muntari was not there. What did you expect? That the coach was what, magician? Of course, we exited the preliminaries. But I thought that Djokovic was in charge. I thought that once we had the full complements of the side, we're definitely going to do well. And I encouraged the FA not to fire the coach, although quite a number of my colleagues felt that the coach had to be fired. We took the coach to Germany for the World Cup, and what happened? We were the only African team to qualify for the next round. It was the same coach. So I'm saying that it's quite simplistic when everything is reduced to one man called the coach. You remember Plavi in 2002, for instance, when we played against Zambia, and we lost to Zambia in 2002 in Equatorial Guinea. You remember we played one of our best games. We had a penalty, and one of our best takers, Asamoah, on that day, fluffed his lines. How did anybody expect me to hold the coach responsible for that? I don't get it, So it's not all the time that you reduce football results to one man called the coach. Yes, I do understand that they take ultimate responsibility. It's the reason that teams that do not do their homework well continue to fire coaches after coaches after coaches and never achieve the desired results. And I keep making the point that at club level, it's more about the teams with the big budgets. It's not necessarily a single person in the dugout called the coach. What is happening to Ranieri? He won the league, the Premiership with Leicester. He's being relegated right now. Of course, he took the team midway. But where is that magic? The so-called tactical nuances and all that. Sometimes there is so much hype about what coaches bring to the table, and I do not normally fall for that. No, it goes beyond that.
23 minutes past 1 p.m. And we're going all the way to the top of the hour, 2 p.m. There's a message here from Kweku Nkrumah at Lakeside Estate. Nat, good afternoon. Kwabena Yeboah is one of my favorite sports journalists. He's just honest and straight up. He speaks his mind, and I just like him. Please ask him, when offered the FA presidency, would he accept it? Thank you. Okay, so Kweku, the FA presidency is not offered. People put themselves up for it, so I'm not very sure what you're, Okay. More messages are coming in. All right. This is quite a lengthy one. I don't know where to begin from. Okay, let's do a few more. Remember, it's 0244 340437. 0244 340437. Good afternoon. I beg to differ with your guest Kwabena Yeboah on Kevin Prince Boateng. The case of KP Boateng and Sule Muntari, for instance, is the failure of the handlers and their man management obligations. We need to learn from our experiences. Even the Andani and Abudu of Lagomba have made peace. Seth Abloso in Accra. Okay, Seth Abloso, thank you for your message. Now, there's another one here. Okay. Ask him if he's made GFA president, what concrete intervention programs will be rolled out for the betterment of the football realms in Ghana. Okay, this is from Saint PDM in DC. Okay, thank you very much for that message. And now there's another one here. Nat, greetings to you and the writer. Just to inform you that the raw talents you saw in Yindi abound all over Ghana. Football and sports talents in Ghana is just like gold, cocoa, and crude, readily available but poorly utilized to our benefits. Let's hope the normalized statutes help us to tap them more. As for KP Boateng, I think the writer has said it. With Muntari, I would have said we owed him. Cyril in University of Ghana.
Yeah, I need to clarify the point between KV and Sule Muntari.
Yes.
I think there are two different scenarios. And if, for example, Sule Muntari was informed, I would always invite him to the national team. Why do I make this point? Sule Muntari is one player who, over the decades, has never turned his back on the national team. He's been fully committed to the national cause, very passionate to the national cause, and he's never turned his back on us. If he's got problems with his temperament, I think that is something that we can manage. So one of the messages spoke about managing some of these players, and I totally agree with that. We can manage them, and Sule Muntari falls into that category. In the case of Kevin Prince Boateng, it's not just about managing him. I'm saying that you don't pick and choose when you want to play for your national team. When it suits you, you come and you want to play for us. And I would not go for that, because when you do that, indirectly you're insulting those who stay committed to the national cause. I mean, if I had my way, for instance, there's no way I was going to take Kevin Prince Boateng to the World Cup, for instance. And my views were expressed openly on this particular subject. The coach had his own opinion on the particular subject, and I respect him for the views that he expressed. By picking him to the World Cup, unfortunately, Prince did not vindicate the trust the coach reposed in him, and went and let him down by insulting him and showing levels of indiscipline, and eventually was thrown out of the national team. So that is completely different from Sule Muntari. I would any day go for Sule Muntari. I'm not saying that right now I'm going to invite him to the national team. I'm saying that if I have any reason to believe that he's in shape, he's somebody I would always invite to the national team, because he's shown enough commitment to the national cause over the years.
Good afternoon. I am one of the listeners of the radio program. I'm always blessed anytime I'm learning. May God bless and increase you. This is from My Peace in Community 25 in Tema. Thank you. Thank you very much. May God bless you too. Now, okay, we were to qualify for the World Cup for the first time under Coach Dosena, but something went wrong. Please, what happened? Okay, he thinks that under Coach Giuseppe Dosena, Ghana should have qualified for the World Cup. And, well, every other time we were supposed to qualify for the World Cup, aren't we?
In that regard, yeah. I mean, we had opportunities in the past, but this is where I give Kwesi Nyantakyi a great deal of credit. I am not shy suggesting that, but for Kwesi, it was always going to be very difficult for us to qualify for the World Cup. There's a formula of qualifying for the World Cup. It's not everything you can put in the public domain, but I thought he had a full grasp of what he had to do to get the team to qualify for the World Cup. Of course, he's not the only person taking credit for that. The government of the day paid their dues, the players paid their part, but I thought the FA president, Kwesi Nyantakyi, did a wonderful job. He knew what he had to do, and thanks to him, I think that it played a major role in ensuring our qualification. The gentleman asked about during the days of Docena. Yes, we had great players, but it's not just about having players. It's also about having the right management and doing the right things to ensure that you qualify for the World Cup. And in that regard, I thought Kwesi Nyantakyi was always brilliant.
Now, there's another one here. Good afternoon to you all in the studio. I want to find out why Coach Kwesi Appiah hasn't gone for the UEFA professional coaching license, and for what matter why Ghanaian coaches are not encouraged and sponsored to go on these professional license courses. He's specifically talking about the UEFA license course, and this is Kobla in Kaneshie.
Yeah, again, there's a very strong argument for that. But the point is that FIFA has decentralized the system. So, for example, if in Central America, I do not think that we're asking coaches in Central America to go for the UEFA license.
Exactly.
In the same way, there's the African component. You don't ask them to go for that. Again, I think that as much as I agree that it's important to update yourself with some of these courses, I think sometimes there's an overemphasis on that. Because I remember, I've never believed in these certificates. I've never believed in that. That is not to say that they are not important or good enough. But I remember when I questioned these certificates, we were told when Plavi was introduced, for instance, that, yeah, this is the first time that we're having a manager with UEFA certificate A. Plavi came, what happened? We got to the semi-final. Others without those certificates got to the semi-final. We're talking about England national team, for instance, Gary Southgate. People should go and ask what certificate he holds. What certificate does Gary Southgate hold? And yet, in the history of English football, he's the first coach since 1990 to get England to the semi-final of the World Cup. So it's not just about certificate, although it's important. So you can come with all the certificates in the world, but if the other factors do not fall in place, there is nothing that you're going to achieve.
And for a moment, we all thought the cup was going home.
The cup was going home.
Home to England.
Football was going home.
There's a message from David Nana Esel. He says, we are all basking in the glory, Nat. It's too good to be a United fan once again. It feels so good. And then he adds this bit of humor. He says, I can imagine how you feel when Kwabena Yeboah retorts, remember a Champong's era in 1978, referring to happenings that happened when you were not born. Okay, well, so there are books to read, and there are people like Kwabena Yeboah who are still alive I can still learn from. Thank you very much, David Nanaisel, for that message. Okay, so there's another one from the mayor of Accra. Now, the mayor of Accra, the Lord Mayor of Accra, Mohammed Ajay Soa, is also tuned in. Honorable Mohammed Ajay Soa sends in, good day, my brother. I'm in favor of the public demand that government, specifically SSNIT, should prioritize the completion of the Trust Emporium in the shortest possible time. The youth and the people of Accra need the facility to train, compete, and produce champions. I remain M. Ajay Soa, Mayor of Accra, and remember that he is also a Trust Emporium ambassador and the chairman of the Greater Accra Swimming Association under the Ghana Swimming Federation. Okay, thank you very much, Mohammed Ajay Soa, the Lord Mayor of Accra, for that message. Remember, it's 02443404437, 02443404437. Okay, so once we're doing football, let's veer into infrastructure, then we'll do a bit of boxing and the like before we wrap up the show. As we speak, the Sports Ministry is undertaking, an infrastructure, expansion project. Several edifices are being built across the country. From time to time, we get updates on what's happening, but the major ones remain and the problems remain. So, a friend of mine, Andrew Aka, who's the country director, managing director of Denchu Ages Network, a big marketing communications firm in Ghana, had to bury his dad, and he had the ceremony at the stadium. So a friend of mine who normally is on our platforms, Francis Doku, took pictures of the dilapidated state of facilities at the Secondary Stadium. Yeah. And I was down when I saw some of the pictures. It was sad. It was very sad. Then brings the question: the National Sports Authority or a private entity to manage our facilities? When do we put a stop to this? This conversation, and when do we take that final decision? Cape Coast Stadium was built, the conversation came up, it is still being managed by the National Sports Authority. Where do we take that break and say, look, we're going in this direction, or otherwise?
I think the state must take that responsibility. And it's clear that we have a very notorious reputation of failing to maintain our facilities. And it's a reason I give thumbs up to the current Sports Minister, Honorable Kwame Siama, for concentrating on infrastructural development. And under his tenure, for instance, we've seen the facelift of the Accra Sports Stadium. And I think that it's important for him to continue to alert the government about their responsibility of renovating and maintaining some of these infrastructure. Because what is the point in investing so much in building up these facilities and just allowing them to rot? So until we get to the point, final decision where we put it in the private hands, I think the government still has to pick up that responsibility of maintaining this infrastructure. Sometimes, because of the enormity of the task that confronts governments, if they are not properly prompted and alerted, their responsibility in the area of sporting infrastructure is left unattended to. And I think it's important to alert them to this because, look, the point ought to be made that there is absolutely no way that any country can develop in terms of their sporting talent without infrastructure. It's absolutely impossible. I mean, look at the Accra Stadium, for instance, the tennis facility at Accra Stadium, for instance. That little facility there is the reason over the years all our tennis stars have come from Osu. The Kojo Atisos and the Duwonas have all come from Osu because of that facility. And Frank Ofori, whose father was the PRO of the National Sports Council at that time, benefited from that facility. And remember, they lived close to the Carnegie Sports Complex.
So the centre court has been named after Frank Ofori.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And he thoroughly deserves that. So it's impossible without infrastructure. And it's the reason South Africa, for instance, in terms of sports, ranks high at the highest level. They compete favorably with the very best in the world. Kevin Anderson, for instance, their tennis star, within the first time in the world. When it comes to rugby, they've won the World Cup. They've won the Cricket World Cup. Not just hosted it, they've won it. And when you go and see the tennis infrastructure, the sporting infrastructure, is the reason. So there is no way we can downplay that. And I guess, as I keep saying, is the reason Honorable Isaac Kwame Siama is one of my favorites sports ministers in recent times, because I just realized that he's concentrating on that aspect of his reign. Because if you're a sports minister, your responsibility is not to just go and read speeches at ceremonies. That is not your core mandate. And again, your mandate is not about who plays for the Black Stars, who doesn't play for the Black Stars, as some of our ministers were busily involved in issues concerning, for example, the Black Stars. No, that is not your mandate. You've got to be a little broad-minded and think outside the box. And it's what I think Siama is doing to a very large extent, but there's a lot more that he can do. And he would need the support of the central government. He alone cannot do that much. It would mean going outside the central government to seek sponsorship to develop some of these facilities. But it's completely unacceptable that the Cape Coast Stadium will be left to rot. The secondary stadium is rotting. It's shameful to us. And I think that we need to alert the government to this particular responsibility if some money can be diverted into that arena to ensure that we need these facilities get some facelift, whilst these new ones that are emerging, crop up all over the country. Because how do you develop your talent without... And it's part of the reason, for instance, I got so enraged when we were renovating the Accra Sports Stadium in 2007, 2008, when we destroyed the tartan tracks.
Yeah.
So where is athletics, for instance, in this country? We never, and this has been an age-long problem that has confronted this country. It's so shameful. We pay lip service to sports in this country, and yet when our sportsmen go on the international scene, we expect them to sell. I get very, very enraged. In 1987, for instance, when we went for the All Africa Games in Kenya, volleyball, for instance, on the international scene, they had stopped playing volleyball on hard surfaces. Back home, because we didn't have the facilities, we were playing on cement.
We still do. We still do.
These athletes went out there to play volleyball. They couldn't dive because they were not used to diving. And I remember the authorities were getting upset with the players. And I was shocked at that kind of arrogance and hypocrisy, that you don't develop your infrastructure and you blame the athletes for that. I find it so shameful. Look, table tennis, for instance. If if you go elsewhere, they have all these table tennis facilities, and the rubber, for instance, I mean, we call it back home, but the rubber, for instance, after a number of games, the rubber is changed.
Sure.
Back home, because of these lack of funds, the players use one rubber, for instance, for a period of about 6 months. And I witnessed a situation where we're going to play against Nigeria, and Nigerians, people like Atanda Musa and Bankole, when they had removed their bats to throw away, those were the rubbers we went collecting and begging for to go and compete with them. So I think it's an area that we need to pay attention to. I remember when the Kaneshie Sports Complex was built initially, and when the swimming pool was made, a very tiny swimming pool, and one of the great sports writers of the time, Ohene Bachar, described it as the how do you call it? The bathroom of Onassis, who was then the world's richest. Yeah. So it's an area that we need to pay attention to. But I think the bigger conversation has been, do we continue to put in the hands of government to maintain it and to manage it, or we put it into private hands? It's another major conversation. Why do I say it's a major conversation? Because once you put it in private hands and they decide to maintain it, what it means is that they're going to charge competitive rates or the right economic rates. What it would mean is that most of our clubs, for instance, could be priced out of using those facilities. And I don't know how we're going to go. So it's a fine line that we have to tread as to whether or not we want to go very, very commercial and put it in private hands to manage these facilities and charge economic rates, as opposed to government pumping money into these facilities and ensuring that the clubs have the benefit of using the stadia and paying at that level what they can offer. Because if you want to charge competitive rates, I don't think any club in this country can survive.
All right. Before we go to boxing, let's quickly touch on Kumasi Asante Kotoko and the performance so far in the CAF Confederation Cup. I see you are nodding in pride and agreement.
I'm very proud of the boys.
Before that, you can start calling now. 0302 216 541. 0302 216 541 with 19 minutes to the top of the hour, 2 p.m.
Yeah, Nat, I need to make an honest confession. I was one of those who did not expect Kotoko to go to Africa. I was opposed to their participation in Africa.
I see.
Yeah, because I didn't think the team was ready. I also didn't think that Professor Dr. Kwabi Che had sufficient resources to take the team into Africa. So I thought that because of our lack of readiness at the time, I thought we were going to invest in building the team for the following year. But they've surprised me pleasantly. If you see the passion with which these players committed their game, the game against Kariobangi, for instance, was privileged to win the first leg, and I thought the second, they were so passionate. I mean, it was incredible. If anybody who had the opportunity of seeing the second leg at the Bayara Sports Stadium, the level at which Kariobangi operated, you realize that Kotoko were brilliant, particularly in the first leg. And the Cotton Sport game, for instance, was not an easy game at all. To go out there and win by 3-2 and come home and win by 2-1 was brilliant. Within the context that there's no competition at home, you understand? And just trading without being competitive are two different issues. And it's a reason I think that they deserve a great deal of credit. And I think we need to be measured. I mean, talking about followers of Asante Kotoko, need to be measured in their expectation of the club, at the group stage.
Let's get on the phone line now. Ogboro is reaching us from Tamale. I beg your pardon. Ogboro, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good to have you here.
I'm very happy to be on your platform. Greetings to the writer. First, I have to talk about the normalization committee. In fact, the competition they are organizing out of pressure from the football fans and the football administration in Ghana. They put too much pressure on the committee such a way that they have nothing to do that to organize the competition. I was just thinking that they give them much time, because the 6 months they give to them, to me, is very limited. I don't think they have much space to operate. So if they will give them some small time, I think distraction is very easy, but how to reconcile is very difficult. So Ghana football have just collapsed, so you have to reconcile the football. So the time given to them, for me, is very limited. I'm not sure Kevin Prince Boateng. I stand by the writer. Kevin Boateng just used Ghana to get the fame and get the big club to play. He ran away from the national team for good 4 years. And some people were there playing. If they all ran away, How come the national team will be there for him to come and play? So I agree that if you just leave him out, we won the African Cup. Since I started supporting the Black Star, they have never won the African Cup for more than 30 years. So for now, for me, I want the African Cup. What do you have to use local players or foreign players? What could Apia want to do? I want him to win the African Cup for Ghana. Thank you very much.
Thank you too. Now from the north, we come down south and go westwards a bit to the central region. Stephen is reaching us from Mankasim. Stephen, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, Nat. Hello?
Yes, sure. We can hear you loudly.
Yes. On the issue of Prince Boateng, I think that he will not play, so we should not waste our time on him. He's not interested in playing AFCON. He's only interested in World Cup. So for me, the conversation about him is much ado about nothing. He's having a good time at Barcelona and must continue playing football. But coming to infrastructure in terms of, sports in Ghana across board, it is preposterous to think that you want the best and yet you are not prepared to put in the best. And that is the problem with Ghana. Check our basic schools. Most of the parts have been converted into buildings. That is the necessary point for training the next superstars in sports. The Ministry of Education, the GES, are sitting by doing absolutely nothing in terms of sports in our schools. And even on the timetable, there's no time for sports in our schools. So how do we train the next generation of budding talent in our schools? As for me, if we want the best, we need to put our best foot forward and do the right thing to get the best. If we don't, everything is about wishing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Also, the head of the Normalization Committee, Dr. Kofi Amoah, is also listening. We're going to get through to him in a bit, so we also take his thoughts. Dr. Kofi Amoah, the head of the Normalization Committee, he is also listening in. Remember, if you're not getting through on the phone line, it's not a problem at all. You can get through on our WhatsApp line and, articulate your thoughts there. Let's talk boxing. Recently, Isaac Dogboe lost. He was our only standing major world champion. He lost the WBO Super Bantamweight title to Mexican Emmanuel Navarrete. In a week's time, Richard Commey will be fighting Isa Chaniev of Russia for the IBF lightweight title. Your thoughts on these two?
Yeah, it was unfortunate that Dogboe lost the fight. I thought he went into the fight a bit complacent, and he was honest enough with his manager, who doubles as his father, to make that admission that they were a bit complacent. They underestimated Navarrete. Having said that, I thought Navarrete is an excellent boxer. I mean, he's got the reach, he's got the height, and some wonderful combination. Fortunately, I think he has an opportunity for a rematch, and I'm hoping that he will do what he has to do to ensure that he reclaims the title. But I guess he's learnt his lessons. Before he won the title, he was quite serious, very, very serious. And having won the title, he defended it successfully. But against Navarrete, I thought he was a bit complacent. Hopefully, he's learnt his lessons. Richard Commey looks a very, very serious boxer. It's unfortunate that our Game Boy has pulled out because of injury. A lot of people have expressed concern about Game Boy as to why every now and then when he has a fight, something crops up, either he's injured and he pulls out. That's a conversation for another day. But Richard Commey looks good enough. He's been there before. He didn't win. I guess he's learned his lessons. But against the Russians, it's always going to be very tough. We can always wish him the best of luck.
All right, so thoughts on boxing there. Let's get on the phone line. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
Okay. So Dr. Kofi Amoah, the head of the Normalization Committee, has just joined us on the line. Citizen Kofi, thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you, Citizen Ato. Let me say that you invited me to come on the show. And, we have some FIFA referees training our referees at Sugakope. So I was not able to accept your invitation. Now,
So before you go ahead, that is to say that next week we're on. I know I'm a naughty boy.
When Kwamina Ebue speaks, that's the end of that. So He is a walking encyclopedia of Ghana sports. I just so admire my brother Yeboah, and we all wish him well in whatever he's doing. What I want to say is that, just as you said, Kotoka has pleasantly surprised you. I venture to say that the normalization committee will pleasantly surprise Ghana. We are taking our job very seriously. We want to close our ears to the rumor mongering. Everybody seems to have an idea what we are doing, what we should be doing. But I think a job like this, when you give it to 3 different people, you have 3 different approaches. We have selected the approach that we think will help us do the fine job that needs to be done to elevate Ghana football. Now, the issue of why are we toying with the idea or even organizing competitions? I think that the first thing we did when we came in was to meet the so-called football community. And I thought it was the right thing. You cannot come and change anything or improve anything when you do not know the details, the delicacies of the problems that they are facing. And I'm glad that we did that in hindsight, because now our knowledge about Ghana football, its problems and opportunities are enriched. And I think we can use that to create the new statutes for Ghana football. The clubs were coming to us, like somebody just called in, we got to start playing football. We can't wait until you finish. We have our players sitting there, they are getting rusty. We have contracts with them. Some of them are leaving us. And when you listen to it, it makes sense, you know. And part of our job is also to run the day-to-day activities of the Ghana Football Association, which includes organizing competitions. Now, with Kotoko, Kwamina himself has said that, yes, there were various opinions that they shouldn't be allowed to go. The whole football community has agreed that nobody should go. But we took a second look and we allowed them to go. Now you see what is happening. Ghana is shining. So in every opportunity, there are 2 sides to a coin. You know, there's the head and the tail. So we keep doing that. The other thing I want to say is going to look for money. Now, sponsorship is the key part of football development and football growth. Without sponsorship, football will die. No country is rich enough to keep pouring money into football, or to say that there are individual rich people within the society who should always put money in their pocket and support. That is welcome. But if you're looking at the strength of an organization, you must look at it from the business angle and do what needs to be done to make it strong, to attract the juice that it needs to move forward. Now,
hello, Doc. Hello, Doc. Unfortunately, the line tripped there. Would try our best to get in contact with him. But he makes a very important point here about methodology and the path to, to success. Okay, so he says that there are different ways of tackling problems, and they have decided to go that route. So Ghanaians should just watch them. They will deliver.
Well, I'm excited about Doc's intervention. I think he's proved quite modest, and he will be excited to be pleasantly surprised. I want to believe that they're doing what they have to do. They report straight to FIFA, so they did not report to us. So sometimes we're left in the dark as to precisely what they're doing. We're not privy to all the things that they're doing, which will give room for all manner of speculation, and we're not too sure what is happening. But their mandate is that they must report to FIFA on a monthly basis, and precisely that's what they're doing. So I'm just hoping, it's all about the good of Ghana football, so I'm just hoping that at the end of it all, we would, but I think that it will definitely reestablish contact. I'll be excited to know from him whether he has sought extension from FIFA.
Yes, Doc, thank you very much. You were making a point, but importantly as well, we would want to know from you, and everybody's interested in knowing whether the normalization committee has made any attempt to seek a mandate extension from FIFA.
No, there's no need to. And I heard the rumor, so many people were calling me. Look, FIFA puts everything on their website. And here again, the media community, my brothers that's in there, we want them to be helpful. Obviously, if we're doing the wrong thing, tell us. But if FIFA have issued a statement, you go to the FIFA website, it will be there. You know, we have not sought any extension. Our mandate will end on March 31st. That is what has happened. And all these rumors and people posting articles on Facebook, this and that and all of that, those are hoaxes. And I think the media people must also know how to check facts. You go to FIFA website, and you get the veracity so that you can educate and inform the public. We have not sought any extension from FIFA. FIFA has not informed me or any of the NC members of any extension. We are doing our job to the end of March 31st, 2019.
Thank you.
The point I was making with the sponsorship was that it's a part of football growing. Now we realized when we started talking to corporate Ghana, you know, my natural instinct as a corporate person to support football development would be to go to the corporate community. And we were amazed to hear the negativity of the corporate community towards Ghana football. The brand is totally destroyed. Now, if you're going to reform anything, and the most important aspect that will build the strength in it, you have no idea what it is. I think you will not have done a good job in analyzing the problems appropriately. And therefore, all this in the competition that we are doing, we had to resort finally to government. That Mr. Government, the way that Ghana football has come to its knees, if you want to resurrect it, we need some little money to start going. And in doing the competition, it is the job of the NC to use the competition in a way that will excite fans to the stadium to watch on television. And if we succeed in doing this, then we think corporate Ghana can come with money. You know, you saw how the stadium is being packed with the Kotoko presence in Africa. So there are minute steps that one takes to try to reform, modernize something that will give you a chance of doing a good job. So on this one, I hope my brother Kwame Yeboah will give us the latitude to also use our sense of judgment as to what we think is the right way for us to do. It can be done in so many different ways, but I think the proof of the pudding is in the eating. You let us get to March 31st and submit to you what we have, and if then we fall short, that is when then you do the criticism. Now,
Doc,
yes,
sure.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, this is not a question, but let me say that let me commend you for your modesty. And yours is a very tough one, very, very tough one, because as I indicated at the beginning of my submission, you came in at a time that Ghana football was completely on its knees, and one needed a very, very discerning mind and the kind of temperament, the right temperament to really stabilize the situation. But as I said, not everybody's going to agree with you on every single step, but the most important thing is that you leave a legacy that you will be very, very proud of. And I'm happy that you clarify the point, because yesterday there were rumors all over the place as though you were getting too excited about the job and you're getting a bit power drunk, and for which reason you've gone to seek power extension. But it's obvious that as you emphasize that you have not sought any extension, by 31st March we would know your job. So thank you very much for that intervention.
All right. Thank you, guys. Enjoy it. I enjoy listening.
Thanks, Doc. But Doc, remember, the voice of the people is the voice of God. So if we get popular demand, we may have to use a subpoena.
you don't need a subpoena. You are my senior citizen. I mean the right time.
Thank you so much, Doc. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend. Dr. Kofi Amoah is head of the Normalization Committee. We'll do our best to squeeze in another very important subject, which is our hosting of the 2023 All Africa Games. This is an initiative which was spearheaded greatly by Mr. Magnus Rex Dankwa. He's done a lot of work in that area, submitting the bid, bringing in many ideas, and now we need to start working towards that. Your quick thoughts before we wrap it up, as time now is racing against us.
Rex dreams big. He dreams big. Without dreaming big, there is no anybody could even go for the All Africa Games. For those who may not be too familiar with the All Africa Games, this is a competition that hosts how many disciplines? 30-something disciplines. And you need infrastructure from across the whole nation. So many disciplines. So for me, what I'm excited about it is the fact that it will provide us with the opportunity to build our infrastructure for almost all the disciplines.
My president, thank you so much. It's been wonderful having you here in the studio. Let's do this again. We have to be doing this on a quarterly basis, you know.
Not quarterly, regularly.
Regularly. The voice of the people is the voice of God. Thank you so much, and we'll see what happens in the Australian Open final. Okay, so that's how we wrap it up. My colleague Elton John Brobe, who we refer to as Honourable, is here ready with the Joy headline news at 2. And to the family of Honourable Emmanuel Ejakun, the late, we say continue to seek solace in the Lord. And he gave him to all of us. He's taken him. And we pray for the continuous repose of his soul. God bless all of them. And once again, I say big thank you, a very, very big thank you to everybody who came through to +233 to support us. It was wonderful last night. Keep it here. Thank you so much to Fifi Forson, Enoch Fifi Forson, my sit-in producer for today, the rest of the Joy Sports team. I'll come back tomorrow afternoon. We'll bring you the Joy Sports Arena, live commentary, analysis, and more. My name is Nathaniel Atto, and I have love for sport.